The girl with the purple eyes. Cade had seen many planets. As a human engineer, he worked in harsh places, hot mining zones, freezing outposts, broken machines in forgotten parts of the galaxy. But Vithrin was different. The skies were deep blue. The air smelled like wet stone, and the city shined with green crystal towers. Cade was only supposed to be there for 3 months to help fix a mining reactor. Nothing more. He didn't expect to meet her. Her name was Ilari. She was tall, elegant, and walked like someone born to rule. Her skin was a smooth shade of violet, and her long silver hair flowed like water. But it was her eyes that stopped Cade in his tracks. They were bright purple, almost glowing, and they seemed to look right through him. They first met in the market district. Cade was carrying heavy parts through the crowded street when someone bumped into him, nearly knocking everything over. That someone was Ilari. She apologized in her soft alien accent and helped him pick up the tools. When their hands touched, something strange happened. She paused. He looked up. And for a long second, neither of them spoke. After that day, she kept appearing. Sometimes near the repair site, sometimes in the small library near the barracks. Cade thought it was a coincidence. It wasn't. One day, she finally said it. "I like the way you speak," she told him. "It's slow, but strong." Cade didn't know what to say. No alien ever complimented a human like that, not on Vithrin. Humans were just workers, useful but unimportant. But Ilari didn't seem to care about that. She asked questions about Earth, about human food, music, even what snow felt like. She laughed when he told her about dogs, and he smiled when she tried to pronounce peanut butter. Weeks passed. They kept meeting. Secretly, Ilari always looked over her shoulder. Cade didn't ask why. Maybe he didn't want to ruin it. One evening, they sat on the edge of a rooftop overlooking the glowing crystal towers. The wind was cold. Ilari was silent for a long time. "My father is the governor of this city," she finally said. "He wouldn't like this." "This?" Cade asked. "You talking, laughing." Cade looked at her and smiled. "Then, let's not tell him," she smiled back. But there was sadness in her eyes. That night, everything changed. Ilari kissed him. Just once, soft and quick like a secret, then she ran. Cade stood there, stunned. His heart was racing. He didn't know what it meant, just that it felt right. The next morning, everything went wrong. Cade woke up to shouting outside the worker quarters. Armed Vithrin guards stormed in, pulling people out of bed. Then they came for him. He didn't resist. They grabbed his arms and dragged him out into the street. A large black hovercraft waited outside, and in front of it stood Governor Thalarex, Ilari's father. He was tall, cold, and covered in armor. His eyes were like ice. "So," Thalarex said, "you touched what you should not." Cade stayed quiet. What could he say? He didn't regret it, not 1 second. Thalarex didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He only gave a small, cruel smile. "If a human loves a Vithrin," he said, "he must prove he's worthy of our blood." Cade didn't understand what that meant. He found out later, after they locked him in the transport, after they took his ID, after they gave him alien combat gear that didn't even fit. He wasn't going back to the mines. He was going to war. As the hovercraft lifted off the ground, Cade looked through the small window one last time. Far below, in the shadows of the towers, he saw a flicker of silver hair disappear into the crowd. Aelari. She was there. Watching. Maybe, just maybe, crying. Cade didn't know where they were sending him. He didn't know how to fight in alien armor. But one thing was clear in his heart. He would survive, for her. The father's fury. The alien warship cut through the dark sky like a knife. Inside, Cade sat in silence, still wearing the same dusty clothes from the mining site. No one had spoken to him since he was taken. The guards didn't explain. The pilot didn't look at him. Only cold air and the soft hum of the ship filled the space. Cade stared at the floor, fists clenched. The last thing he remembered was Ilari's kiss, and now he was a prisoner. When the ship finally landed, the doors hissed open to reveal a bleak, red wasteland. Sharp winds screamed across the dry soil. A massive fortress loomed ahead, made from black metal and strange Vithran stone. It looked like a place where no one smiled, a place where people disappeared. Cade was marched through gates, past rows of alien soldiers. None of them looked like him. Their eyes glowed faint blue, their faces full of scars. One looked at him and spat on the ground. Another muttered a word that sounded like traitor. Inside the fortress, Cade was pushed into a cold room. Waiting for him was Governor Thalrex. No armor this time, just a long dark coat and the same cold eyes. He stood near a large window, watching the storm roll across the hills. "You are not special," Thalrex said, without turning around. "You are a worker, a human, weak." Cade stayed silent. His jaw tightened. "My daughter made a mistake," the governor continued, "but I do not punish her for being naive. I punish you for making her believe you were worth something." Now Thalrex turned, stepping close. His face was full of disgust. "You think a kiss makes you her equal? You think a story about Earth makes you a warrior? No, but I am fair. I give you a chance to become something." He handed Cade a folded uniform black armor with Vithran military markings. "You will join the 89th Legion," he said. "Outpost Rixon." Cade stared at the uniform. "You're sending me to war." Thalrex smiled faintly. "Not war. Training. If you survive that, you may live long enough to bleed on a real battlefield." Cade was taken away before he could speak again. The ride to Outpost Rixon was long and rough. Snow slammed against the transport as it flew over frozen mountains. The air grew colder with every hour. When they landed, the sky was ash gray and the ground was covered in ice and broken metal. This wasn't a camp. It was a graveyard. "Out," barked a commander with a deep, robotic voice. "Welcome to the Legion." The other recruits were aliens, Vithran, Vrixian, and other species Cade didn't know. They stared at him like he was a pet, not a soldier. "Look, the humans." "Shivering," one said with a sharp grin. "Maybe he'll freeze before the first drill," another laughed. They pushed him, mocked him, ignored him. The instructors didn't care. Training began at dawn. It was brutal. Every day was pain. They ran through ice storms, fought in zero gravity zones, learned weapons that burned the skin if held wrong. Cade was always slower, always last. He didn't know the language of their commands. He was hit, insulted, left behind. But he never gave up. He remembered Ilari's eyes every time he wanted to quit. He remembered the way she said, "I like the way you speak." He remembered how Thalrex looked at him like trash. Cade swore he would make them all regret it. Then came the test, a surprise night drill, no warning. The sirens screamed. Recruits ran from their bunks, grabbing weapons. But this time, it wasn't a drill. Real attackers stormed the training field creatures from the lower colonies, rebels, who wanted Vithran blood. The camp fell into chaos. Screams echoed. Fires burned. Recruits panicked. Soldiers shouted orders Cade didn't understand. He ran toward cover, heart pounding. A blast hit nearby. He fell, ears ringing. When he looked up, he saw a Vrixian recruit lying in the snow, bleeding, frozen in fear. Cade didn't think. He crawled, grabbed the soldier, and dragged him behind. A barricade. Gunfire flashed. Heat burned his side. But he kept moving. Later, when the battle ended, they counted the injured. Most were untouched. Cade was not. His arm was scorched, ribs cracked, but the Vrixian he saved was alive. The commander walked over, staring at him. "You don't understand our tongue," he growled, "but you understand courage." For the first time, no one laughed at Cade. They called him Survivor. But deep inside, Cade didn't feel proud. He only whispered to himself, "This isn't my war. I'm only here because I kissed the wrong girl." And still, he didn't regret it. The frozen blood of Rixanth planet Rixan didn't care who you were. It didn't care if you were a governor's daughter's secret lover or just a nameless recruit. It only cared about how fast you learned to survive or how quickly you froze and died. Cade learned that lesson the hard way. After the attack, the atmosphere in the camp changed. Soldiers who once mocked him now gave quiet nods. No one offered friendship, but they stopped pushing him. He had spilled blood, his own and his enemies. That earned silence, if not respect, but it didn't make life easier. His body was still weak compared to the others. Vitherans had thick skin, fast healing. The Vrixians had heat-regulating organs that let them fight in blizzards without slowing down. Cade had nothing, just pain and a heart that refused to break. The mornings were the worst. The snow on Rixan wasn't normal. It carried chemicals that burned if left on exposed skin too long. Every step through the tundra felt like walking on knives. They trained with no rest, no food breaks. Cade's hands bled every time he lifted the alien rifles. His shoulders screamed when he climbed the black frost cliffs, and still he pressed forward, because every time his muscles begged to quit, he pictured Allari's face, her eyes, her voice, the way she looked at him like he was something rare, something real. He couldn't let her memory die out here in the snow. That's when they gave him the trial. The instructors had a tradition. When a new recruit showed signs of promise but didn't belong, they sent him into the dead zone. A place so cold even the wildlife froze in motion. A place filled with twisted wreckage from old alien wars, still leaking radiation. Cade was handed a single weapon, a long staff blade that hummed with weak energy. No translator, no food, no team. Just 3 days. If he returned alive, he stayed. If he didn't, no one would ask questions. The others watched in silence as he was taken beyond the perimeter fence. The gates closed behind him like a tomb door dot inside the dead zone. Everything was quiet. No wind, no birds. Just the crunch of Cade's boots on ice. The sky above was a sick green, clouds swirling like smoke. His breath froze instantly, but he walked. One step at a time. Hours passed. Then a full day. He kept moving, using the staff blade to test the ground, hunting for a place to shelter. He found the ruins of an old crash site, an alien drop pod twisted in metal. Inside he huddled, trying not to sleep, but something was watching him. Second night, it attacked. A creature large, spider-like, with frost-covered limbs and glowing blue eyes crawled down from the rocks. It moved without sound, blending with the snow. Cade didn't see it until it leaped. He rolled aside just in time, the beast slashing past him. He swung the staff blade, barely grazing its leg. It screamed a high, sharp sound that made his ears bleed. Then it lunged again. This time Cade didn't dodge. He stepped in. Letting the creature's momentum carry it forward, he jabbed the blade up and twisted. The energy core sparked. The blade tore through cold flesh. The creature collapsed, twitching. Dead. Cade stood over it, shaking, bloody, breath steaming in the air. He was still alive. By the third day, he returned to the outpost. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He dropped the creature's severed claw at the commander's feet and walked to his barracks. No one said a word. That night, they gave him a name, Whiteblood. It meant someone who bleeds in the snow but never falls. A rare title. Not given. Earned. Cade still didn't feel like he belonged. But he no longer felt like prey. He sat alone, staring at the stars beyond the cold steel window. Somewhere out, there was Ilari, maybe still waiting. Maybe not. He didn't know. But he whispered under his breath, "I'm coming back." And this time, not even her father could stop him. Asterisk letters that drift through space every soldier at Outpost Rixon learned to forget. Forget home. Forget warmth. Forget the people they once loved. It was the only way to survive the cold. But Cade refused. Even with cracked ribs and half-healed wounds, he carried Ilari with him like a fire buried deep inside. He didn't have her voice anymore. No pictures. No proof that what they had was ever real. All he had were words, and so he began to write. The outpost had no formal mail system for humans, but Cade found a way. A quiet quartermaster, one of the few aliens who didn't hate him, agreed to sneak out encrypted message chips. No questions asked. In return, Cade offered repair work, extra rations, and silence. The price of love in a frozen war zone. Each letter began the same. "Ilari, if this even reaches you." He poured everything into them. Not just what he was doing, but what he was feeling. He told her how the wind screamed that night like a wounded animal. How he had to sleep with his back to the wall in case another soldier tried to accidentally end him in the dark. How he still dreamed of her laugh, her awkward human words, the way she blinked slowly when confused. He asked her if she was safe, if her father watched her every move, if she still thought about that kiss. For weeks there was no reply. Cade kept writing anyway, until one day something arrived. It was hidden inside a maintenance tool crate. A chip small and easy to miss. But Cade knew the moment he saw it, this wasn't from the military. With shaking hands, he plugged it into his wrist pad. A holographic message flickered to life. There she was. Ilari. Her face appeared pale, tired but still beautiful. Still her. "I didn't know," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't know he would send you there. I begged him to stop. I even threatened to leave. He told me that if I disobeyed, he would send someone to kill you." She looked away. For a moment, her mask of calm broke, and a tear slipped down her cheek. "I'm trying, Cade. I swear. I haven't given up." And then the message ended. Just like that. No coordinates. No promises. Just a whisper in the dark. But it was enough. More than enough. Cade held the chip against his chest and laughed for the first time in months. Even in a place built from steel and ice, the smallest flicker of love could still burn. The next morning, something else changed. The commander called him to the briefing chamber. Normally, humans weren't even allowed near that level of clearance. But this time, they made an exception. Cade stood in front of a star map while a senior tactician growled out the plan. A long-range mission. Into a rebel-infested sector near the volcanic fault lines. High risk. High value. Only experienced soldiers could volunteer. Cade didn't wait. "I'll go." The others looked at him in surprise. Some laughed under their breath, but the commander didn't laugh. He stared at Cade for a long time and finally nodded. Then, "You better not die, white blood." Before he left, Cade wrote one more letter to Ilari, the shortest one yet. "I got your message. I'm still breathing. I don't plan to stop. Tell your father I'm not done becoming the man you saw in me. I'll come back." He didn't sign his name. He didn't need to. She'd no doubt as he stepped onto the transport ship with his rifle strapped across his back and the cold wind biting his neck. Cade didn't feel like a lost human anymore. He felt like a storm gathering speed. And in the back of his mind, one question remained. Was she still fighting for him too? Because out here, one wrong move meant death. And love, even love like theirs, had no place on the battlefield. Or did it? Betrayal in the shadow. Srixon burned red in the distance as Cade's transport flew low over the mountains. The new mission wasn't just dangerous, it was nearly suicidal. Lava storms, enemy territory, radio blackouts. But Cade didn't care. Not anymore. He had one purpose now, not just survival, proof. Proof to Alari, proof to Falrex. Proof that a human didn't need permission to matter. The squad he was sent with wasn't his usual unit. These soldiers were elite silent, deadly, trained for infiltration and fast kills. But the moment Cade stepped off the ramp, he felt it. Something was wrong. The squad leader, a tall Vithron male with sharp silver tattoos and cold yellow eyes, didn't speak to him directly. The others acted like he wasn't there. No briefings, no plan, no gear check. Just one whispered line from a younger soldier who walked past him. "They sent you with him?" Cade didn't understand. Not until the ambush. It happened on the second night during a blackout zone near the molten cliffs. The squad moved in formation, except Cade was sent ahead, told to scout the path. It didn't feel right. Too quiet, too open. Still, he obeyed. Then the rocks exploded around him. A swarm of rebel creatures burst from the ground, six-limbed, armored, and screaming in a tongue of fire. Cade raised his rifle, fired until it overheated. But they kept coming. One slammed into him, ripping his armor. Another grabbed his leg. He twisted, stabbed with his side blade, rolled down a ridge. Bleeding, gasping. He looked back. The squad was gone. No backup. No retreat signal. Nothing. He'd been left. Deliberately. Hours later, Cade crawled into a cave, dragging a wounded leg. Behind him, blood soaked his side. But the pain was nothing compared to the fire in his chest. They'd planned it. Not all of them. Him, the squad leader. The one with the tattoos. Alari's cousin. The truth hit like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just fighting soldiers or monsters out here. He was fighting family politics, bloodlines, honor, shame. To them, Cade wasn't just an outsider. He was a blemish on a powerful name. Cade passed out in that cave, thinking he might not wake up again, but he did. And when he opened his eyes, something inside him had changed. He limped back to camp 3 days. Later. Alone. Wounded. Dragging the body of one of the rebel creatures behind him like a trophy. The outpost guards didn't know what to say. The squad had already reported him missing in action, claimed. They saw him fall into a lava fissure, burned, gone. But here he was. Alive. When the commander confronted the squad leader, the man simply sneered. He disobeyed orders, ran ahead. His own fault. Cade didn't argue. He just looked the man dead in the eyes and said, "You forgot to finish the job." The commander didn't punish the leader, not directly. Politics ran too deep. But something changed in the air. For the first time, the soldiers stopped calling him white blood with mockery. Now they said it with something closer to fear. That night, Cade sat on the edge of the training yard, writing again. His ribs ached. His arm was bandaged, but his hands were steady. "Alari, your cousin tried to bury me in fire. You probably already know. Maybe you warned him. Maybe not. I don't care anymore. I survived. That's all that matters." He hesitated. Then added, "Tell your father I'm learning his lessons faster than he expected." Still no reply, but Cade didn't need one. Not this time, because he finally understood he wasn't just some lost human who kissed the wrong girl. He was becoming a weapon. One they should. Ven never created. The return of the ghost. The rumor spread faster than fire through the outpost. The human ghost came back from the dead. At first, it was said with sarcasm, then with awe, then with silence. Cade had survived the dead zone, survived the ambush, survived being forgotten. In A world where even fully trained alien warriors fell every week, he kept walking. And now the soldiers saluted him. Some did it mockingly, others with respect. But none dared to call him weak again. He didn't smile. He didn't speak unless he had to. Every scar on his body was a message. Every limp step said, "You failed to break me." The command council noticed. They gave him a medal, not out of honor, but to make him more useful. Motivate the troops, they said. Let the alien hugger be our story. Cade didn't care about medals. But what he did care about was access. That medal gave him permission to travel to the capital city on short leave, and the moment that ship landed, Cade made a choice. He wasn't here for medals. He was here for her. The capital hadn't changed. Still beautiful. Still glowing green. Towers. But Cade had changed. His face was lean. His eyes were colder. His steps had purpose. He moved like a soldier now. He found her in the garden of the high halls alone. Under the white crystal trees. Ellery. Her back was turned as she touched a blooming vine with pale fingers. When she heard the crunch of his boots, she turned, and her breath caught. Cade? Her voice cracked like ice breaking under weight. She ran to him. No guards, no games, no hesitation. She threw her arms around him. He didn't know how long they stood like that. All he knew was her warmth, her scent, her trembling. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. "I almost was." "Why? Why did you come back?" Cade pulled back slightly. "Because I wanted to see you again before they try to kill me again." She looked down. "My father." "I know," he interrupted. "He hates me. So does your cousin." "But I didn't come to fight them." She blinked. "Then why?" "To ask you one thing." "What?" Cade's voice was steady. "Do you still want me?" She stared at him, and slowly she nodded. But before they could speak again, footsteps echoed. Behind them, sharp, cold. Her fiancé, the high caste officer, the one her father approved, the one with royal blood. He stared at Cade with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "You've come a long way just to die in my city," he said. Cade turned, eyes sharp. "Then let's finish it." The officer laughed. "You want a duel? You're a worker, a foreigner. You have no rights here." Cade stepped forward. "Challenge me, in front of the council. No knives in the back this time. You really think you can beat me in the arena?" "I don't need to win," Cade said. "I just need to last. Long enough to make them all remember who I am." The officer paused. Then, for reasons only pride could explain, he nodded. "It will be a quick fight." Cade leaned in, eyes burning. "Not as quick as our kiss?" The officer's face darkened. It was done. The duel would happen in front of the FUD. Royal command. Public. Unstoppable. And as Cade walked away with Alari's hand still trembling in his, he didn't feel fear, only fire, because the man who returned to this city wasn't the same human who kissed a violet-skinned girl in a crystal garden. He was the ghost they couldn't kill, and tomorrow he would make sure they remembered exactly why. The battle for her heart. The sky above the capital turned storm gray as the arena gates opened. This wasn't just a duel. It was a message. To every noble, every soldier, every merchant who believed that humans belonged in the dirt. This fight said otherwise. Thousands watched from the glass balconies of the high towers. Holograms floated above the arena, projecting the fight across the city. The crowd came for a spectacle. They expected the alien officer, heir to a noble bloodline, to crush the filthy outsider in seconds, but Cade didn't walk in like prey. He walked in like a shadow that refused to die. Across the circle stood Alari's fiancé, taller, stronger, and dressed in ceremonial gold armor. His blade glowed red with pulsing energy. His face wore a calm smile. To him, this wasn't a fight. It was cleanup. Cade wore no armor. just worn black combat gear and the burn-marked gloves from Rickson. His weapon was a simple staff blade, cracked and re-welded many times, but in his eyes there was something the noble officer didn't have. Nothing left to lose. The bell rang. The crowd fell silent. The officer struck first fast and sharp, swinging his blade with trained elegance. Cade dodged barely, countered with a low sweep. Metal cracked. Sparks flew. Cade rolled, slashed again, caught a hit to his ribs. Pain exploded in his side, but he didn't fall. He couldn't fall. Not while Ilari was watching from behind the barrier. Her hands covered her mouth. Her eyes wide with fear and something else. Hope. Minutes passed. The duel turned brutal. No more elegance, no more form. Just rage and grit. The noble was bleeding now. Confused. Frustrated. This was supposed to. Be quick, he hissed, panting. You're just a human. Cade wiped blood from his lip. That's the problem. You've spent your life above people like me. I spent mine surviving them. The officer lunged again, reckless. Cade ducked, twisted, and drove the hilt of his blade into the man's jaw. The noble stumbled, stunned. The crowd gasped. Some even stood. Cade saw the opening, but he didn't kill him. He dropped his weapon. I'm not here to take a life, he said, loud enough for all to hear. I came to prove I'm worth one. He turned to Ilari, and in front of the entire Vithran elite, he said the words that no outsider ever dared to say, Ilari, if you still choose me, then I am yours, no matter what they say. She didn't hesitate. She stepped into the ring, walked straight past her fiancé now kneeling, shamed, and stood beside Cade. Her father stood at the top balcony, cold-eyed and silent. The crowd turned to him, waiting. He could order them both killed. He could. Call it treason, but Governor Thalrex raised one hand and slowly lowered it. A silent signal. Stand down. The guards did nothing. The crowd held its breath, and just like that, without a word, spoken, Ilari and Cade were free, not because they asked, but because they earned it. Later, far from the arena, in a quiet corner of the city, Cade and Ilari sat together under the crystal trees again. No more hiding. No more fear. You still don't belong here, she whispered, smiling. I know, Cade said. Then what now? He looked at her, eyes calm. Now we make a place of our own. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And for the first time since that kiss in the garden, there was peace. Not just between them, but within him. Because love wasn't just a feeling, it was a fight, and Cade had already won the war.